Well, we'll start this off. First and foremost, want to say thank you. And it starts with not just the kids that signed today, but those families that signed with us as well. For them really believing and trusting in what it is that we're doing, not just here on the field, but off the field, because it's a big step, for these 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds in some cases, for those families to sign off on letting them and believing in where they're going and what they're doing. This isn't just about football. There's a lot more involved in this. Thank you, obviously, to a lot of these guys in here that did most of the work. Building relationships are not easy. It's not just identifying football players and guys that, we believe can help our football program, but really trying to identify the right kind of young man that has really got a chance to not just, provide value on the football field, but provide value in that locker room and a lot of the things we do. And it takes a lot of work trying to figure out who those right guys are, but a lot of work at building relationships. And these coaches have done that. It happens really fast today. I think from 7 to about 7:20, pretty much everything's done with exception to guys that have a little bit of a time change. For all the work that you do, especially throughout the summer with this early signing and in the summer visits, for things to kind of be over like that, sometimes it becomes anticlimactic. But we had a few that at least kept us on our heels and making sure that the day was going to end the right way. And so a lot of guys, there's a lot of work that went into this. Our entire recruiting department, all those home game visits and a lot of those things, those unofficial visits where guys are coming anytime throughout the summer and in the winter. There's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just the guy that stand up here, or not even just the coaches. There's a lot of people. So with that being said, obviously there's great depth in what we signed this year. I don't think that you can just say, hey, we signed 9 offense and 9 defense, because the reality is today we're signing a lot of athletes and guys that and could play a lot of different positions. So we have some ideas of where they would start, where they finish. Who really knows? But believe in the 16 guys, that they're the right ones, the guys that are going to fit in and believe in the things that we're doing. Whether they have an opportunity to play right away, the most important thing is where they'll be in 2, 3, and 4 years and where they can take us. So with that being said, I think there's 16. We signed 16 guys. It was really a kind of a smaller senior class for us. Next year we'll probably have a good 19, 20 seniors, so it would be a larger class. But 16 guys have signed as of right now today. 10 of those guys are from Ohio, 4 from Illinois, 1 from Florida, 2 from Georgia, and 1 from Michigan, which kind of gives us that balance that we're talking about, of being within that 300-mile radius, and then some difference makers outside of that. But I'd say first and foremost, 6 kids from the 50-mile radius, what we would consider the state of Cincinnati, that is really, really big to the core and the crux of our football program. Sammy Anderson, who's a guy from Trotwood, Madison, that could play a lot of different positions, but he's a first-team All-State guy and a state champion. Gavin Gerhart, the first-team All-State guy from Xenia, Ohio. David Jones from Lakota West. Deshaun Pace from Coleraine, who was obviously the Division I Defensive Player of the Year. Jaheim Thomas from Princeton, who, obviously a lot of people know, and I think at one time was the 2nd or 3rd or 4th ranked guy in the state of Ohio. And then Evan Prater, the first Mr. Football since 1992 to play high school football in Cincinnati, are the guys that really kind of, have really kind of got this thing going. Not just the Evans, but Jaheim's and all those guys that, create a lot of energy and momentum for us to, throughout the state, but also when those other guys come in on their visits, were guys that were, did a great job, not just them, but also their families, to be around and to make people feel really comfortable about, what's going on in this program, what we're all about, because, it's easy for them to build a little bit of a relationship with us as coaches, but then when they come on campus and they see the depth of the program, and I don't mean the depth of the depth chart, I mean the depth of the program, when they meet families from a lot of these kids that are in our football program, those guys from Georgia and Florida and wherever it is they're from feel a lot more comfortable about, leaving their kids and sending them off to a great place with some great people and some great families as well. So I think that, who's those? We still have a slight bit of flexibility there for the January and then the later February signing date that might give us an opportunity to enhance the class even a little bit more, which I think is always a good thing for us. And what you've seen kind of the trend in college football, that there's still a few more things out there for us to figure out what we might need to better our football program and in what areas. So I know, Chad, you might as well start it off because you probably have a few. You stopped texting me now, right? When was the last one? About
That was last night.
11 o'clock last night? Okay.
We'll start with the first guy in, and you talked about being an offensive line-driven program. What did getting Gavin Gerhardt committed that early and having him buy in and be one of those guys out front?
Well, something has to start it, and Gavin had a lot of opportunities, a lot of options, but being an offensive line-driven program, that was a big deal for us. Not to mention the depth at our O-line. I mean, we ended up bringing in, I think, 4 O-linemen this year, and it's something that if you're going to pride yourself in the development of those things, you got to make sure you're out there working at it. So he started the kind of thing, and I'm not saying he brought everybody else in, but it's amazing what O-linemen can do for other O-linemen. And not just him. That's one of those guys I'm talking about their family and their ability to visit with other people, communicate with other people. So the John Williamses, that are 5 hours away, feel a little more comfortable about where it is they're going and who their kids are going to be with and the type of kids they're going to be around. So, there's a lot more that goes into it than just being the first guy. There's a lot of work that Gavin and his family did for us.
Gavin comes in as the highest-rated quarterback in program history. What does it mean for the program to take a top 5 kid in the state of Ohio and keep him home?
5 or 3?
Top 3.
Okay. I mean, don't short him now. He's got 2 slots. He jumped up this year.
Maybe top 2. But to keep him home, what does that mean for the program to say top 5 in the state?
Those are the kinds of things I think that when people step back and look at it, they, at first don't realize, okay, he had this offer, but when they, step back and try to say, okay, who knows the most about these programs? Yes, the coaches can tell you whatever it is that they want to tell you, and the kids in the program can tell you some things that they want to tell you, but the people that sometimes are the closest, the people that, obviously do their homework. So I think outside, a lot of people are looking at saying, okay, this kid had an incredible amount of opportunities. Why? He didn't just stay at home because his mom went to school here. He didn't just stay at home because, his family is really tight and close. He stayed at home because it's an incredible fit for him. He's got a relationship with Coach Gino and myself and a lot of different people around here, but they also truly believe in the direction and where we can go with what it is we're doing, not just on the field, but off the field. So I think those are more than just say, hey, it's amazing to get Mr. Football, being from Cincinnati, but it's also more amazing to say, hey, is highly recruited and as much as he did his homework, that a lot of people outside recognize that they know what's going on in this program, and they're a great example of, the belief that a lot of people have in the program.
No.
He'll let somebody else chime in for a minute.
Especially with the transfer portal that has grown, almost how easy it is, it seems like, to win there. What are your message to prospect recruits when they might have a few other guys at a position ahead of them?
Well, I'll be honest. I think the transfer portal is something that's a little bit blown out of proportion. There was always an opportunity for guys to transfer. It's a little bit more public now, but I also don't think it's a bad thing. And I mean that for our program, because I think what it allows you to do and makes you do is make sure you've got a great relationship with the guys in your program. You've developed a trust between the two of you, because not everything's going to go perfect. These 16 kids, I've told every single one of them, whatever it is you think your college, path is going to look like, it's going to be different. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. If you don't believe in the people that are around you, if you can't trust them, you can't sit down and talk with them, yeah, you can be swayed on maybe the grass is greener on some other side. So in some ways, I believe it's become a little bit too easy to throw your name into those things, but I think what it's made us do as football programs to be more aware of the feelings and what's going on with a lot of young kids. It used to be, hey, once they sign, now you're going to de-recruit them and you do this, this, and this, and just wear them out. No, the reality is, the most important thing is development. And it's not just development of how a guy like Evan Prater is going to look in 2 years, or Gavin Gerhardt or those guys. It's where their development of the relationship between the coaches and the guys in the program, and whether things are going really well or not. If they believe they're in the right place, they believe they're in a good place, they believe they're growing, people don't just take off and go quite as easily. So I think in some ways you got to look at it as how can it be a positive. It can be a positive in making us build better relationships with our guys, communicate with them a lot more, so that they know what the future really looks like.
Thomas and Evan Prater have known each other pretty much their whole lives. They played TV football together. Do you view their connection coming in as a positive?
I think they were Super Bowl champs. I think I heard maybe it was 2 or 3 years in a row. I can't remember what it was, but I've seen the pictures. I know the connection. I think that it helps each other. Yes, I think their connection is really big in getting them here. I think their connection to what it can do for us, even continue to move forward with the next group of guys is going to be amazing too. Just like I don't want to use Coach Gino as an example, but Coach Gino is a great example, for us in our program of these guys that have a lot of opportunities, kind of like he did coming out of high school. And, he took a chance on something that he believed was the best thing for him. And, Jaheim's a very similar situation, and Evan's a very similar situation. And those things go a long ways. I kind of brought it up with, what people recognize about, Evan coming here and Jaheim coming here, that, hey, those are people that know what's really going on inside that program. And for them to show their trust and faith and belief and, maybe overlook some of the things that other people would say are, a different option for them, I think shows and makes people take a notice of, not just the football program, but everything that's going on here in the university.
Do you recruit those types of kids different that have quote unquote bigger offers?
No, because we don't use that bigger offer. We don't use anything in those ways. But I think you just got to know what it's about, And some guys are looking for different things, and if they are, then maybe this isn't the right place. I try to tell them we look for the right ones. Well, who are the right ones? What Chad and them rank them? What star they put next to them? No, I mean, don't get me wrong. That they're keeping score of certain things. Yeah, we want to win too. But when we say the right ones, we're looking for the ones that we truly believe in 2-3 years are going to be really, really important roles into this program. Not somebody just going to walk in, if they don't truly, maybe fit some of the things that you want to do. And I don't mean offensively and defensively. I mean in what you believe they can thrive in, the culture and the environment that you create. I don't know that you're always putting a kid in the best position. So I think that those things go a long way, and them evaluating us for what's important to them. Some people say, oh, they stayed home because their family. No, yeah, their family's important to them, but they also believe in the direction of what it is that we're doing and where we're going as a program and a university.
You talk about competitiveness a lot. How do you evaluate competitiveness?
Well, I mean, it's not always the easiest thing. Obviously, it's pretty simple to put on a highlight video, but that's where you got to dive in. I mean, we don't get an opportunity to go to a lot of football games live. So why are you going to a basketball game? There's things that you want to watch. I mean, even if it's a practice, and I mean, you can take somebody's opinion for it, but the reality is, that's their opinion. And to be able to see things in person, you got to find a way. Some things you can't see on film. You certainly can't see in a highlight video. And as much as you got to find a way to get there to see some different things, whether it's practice, whether it's a game in person, whether it's basketball games, whatever it is, you're just trying to truly find out what the competitive spirit is in each and every guy. And sometimes that's even looking at the competition they're playing against. And not that you wouldn't take a guy, but when you know what kind of competition they're playing against, maybe they don't have the greatest team, or maybe they didn't win the state championship, but you know what the competition is like and what they have to do on an everyday basis. That's why, to me, it's not that we just like the kids from Ohio or we just like the kids from our 300-mile radius. We just know a little bit more about them. We can get some honest opinions sometimes of them. We also know maybe what it is that they're playing against on a daily basis that give you a little bit better idea of what that competitive spirit is and what kind of competitive spirit they had to have to be successful where they are.
When you have so much talent in Cincinnati, that is probably different because it's easier to closer. But there is probably a pressure that's associated with that. You've got to bring some of these guys in. You've got to be able to bring some of these hometown guys in. You obviously do that with that class. But does you and your staff, you feel that pressure that we've got to get some of these guys?
No, I don't, you could ask them that. I think that they feel some pressure from maybe the guy that's standing up here or even each other, because sometimes it becomes such a competitive thing that there's where the pressure really comes. I don't know that I've ever felt like, hey, we have to have certain guys from this area. When we came here, that was a big part of, in order to, we believed to be successful here, you had to have the guys from this area, from this community, because they play great football, because of the culture and the environment that we were going to create as a football program, being the competitive spirit and very structured in the things that we do. We believe that a lot of the guys from this Midwest, or especially the state of Cincinnati, that are coming from programs that, guys that could walk in the door here and thrive, and not just be one of them guys that is in survival mode for the first year because it's so different and so new and the expectation is so high. So, I mean, just like playing games. I don't know that you could put any more pressure from the outside than I think we do as a football program from the inside. And I think that's what gives us a chance to, to be successful and not worried about what always you're thinking about from the outside.
When you go down to a small town, Georgia, to get guys like Cincinnati as a counselor, what do you really celebrate?
Well, it comes down to being the right ones. And you can go down there and there's tons of football players, whether you're going to South Georgia, whether you're going to North Georgia, you're going to Florida. You got to have some idea of where you're going to spend your time and where you're going to work. And I mean that in the sense that once you get to know them, once you meet their families, you got to try to envision when they come up here on campus, when they spend some time with our kids and our families, do we really have a chance to get them? Do you believe that they're going to have similar values to the things that are important? Because if they don't, when they come up here, they might say, well, that's my best offer, and then they come here, and in reality, it doesn't end up working out. But when they come up here and you do a great job evaluating what you think they are deep down inside, and then all of a sudden they get up here and they realize that there's a lot of guys, whether I'm from South Georgia or Florida, there's a lot of guys that have the same kind of values as me, that believe in the same things, that have the same somewhat work ethic and goals and dreams. I think that's when you say, okay, did we do a great job at landing them? Yeah, I think coaches did a good job at identifying them, and then once they get them here, our guys in our program did a great job at showing them who we really are, and I think they realize and recognize the fit that they have here.
How unique is a guy like Deshaun Pace that has that kind of size, but the athletic ability to play defensive back in high school, projects, linebacker, moving up, whatever, but he's kind of a unique guy.
I think there's obviously some very good football instincts and things that he did to be Defensive Player of the Year, but I think more than anything, his competitive spirit is what has always made, and what probably made Coleraine the team they were this year. That when you got a leader like that, yes, is a ball player, but we've all seen some really, really good football players that, maybe play really well on Friday night as a high school kid or play really well on Saturday as a college guy. But when you watch them and evaluate them on a daily basis and you recognize the competitive spirit, the leader that they are, they make a lot of people around them better. And I think that may be maybe one of the greatest attributes from what I know of Deshaun and what I've seen from him is the ability to make a lot of people around him better, because he is such a competitive guy. You could ask any of the guys he's played this year who maybe talks a little more than the rest, but deep down inside, who's probably one of the greatest competitors you played against. And probably to a team, most every one of those guys would say Deshaun.
There's a guy on this list that people in my business are wrong about. Would it maybe be Norman Love with his ability when he plays?
You try to put words in our mouth?
Senior tape is ridiculous.
It is, and that's another one of those ones that if you don't have some connection with who they're playing and what down there, sometimes you don't always know that. Norman's played all over the place. I talked to him on the phone today, and I said, "You still willing to rush the passer like you did for half the snaps this year, or catch punts, or do whatever it is it needs to do?" Coach, I'll do whatever it is you need to do. And I think he's one of those guys that has done an incredible amount of different things for their team, playing defensive end, playing wide receiver. Probably played some quarterback. I mean, all over the place. To get him into one position, I think is going to, the growth of Norman will be, quick, and I think that's his ceiling is really, really high, and I'm excited to find out. Those are some of those guys you don't know quite as much about, but what you see on film is a very competitive guy that played a lot of different things, and kind of like that guy that plays 3 sports, and all of a sudden he hones into one sport. It's amazing how much more they grow and change, and I think Norman's one of those guys.
What is the process like for a player like him? How do you decide where to start out?
Well, we kind of go through and say, where is your heart and your mind? Wherever your heart and your mind is, that's where we want you to go. Now, at some point in time, obviously, we might have a different perspective, but it's always better when they figure it out themselves. If a guy comes in and thinks he's a quarterback and he stays in the quarterback room for about 3 weeks and then he realizes, you know what, this probably isn't the best thing for me, and they naturally change themselves. Norman's the same way. His heart and his mind right now is a wide receiver, and he'll come in and go in the wide receiver room, and what he does, what his body does, and how he grows, we'll see. We've got a few guys, so I said that. You got a guy like Sammy Anderson, who's an incredible athlete, wins a state championship in football, and 3 days later he's on the basketball court and trying to win a state championship in basketball. I mean, who knows what he could be and will be in another year or two. And ultimately, if they make the decision what's best for them, where their heart and their mind is, and when it's their decision, they usually grow a lot faster. And you know, those are, to me, has been the greatest success. Now, once we get further into it, sometimes we got to, you know, open their eyes and encourage them to some other things. But for the most part, those guys that are really competitive, they got a good idea of once they get there of where their best avenue and where their best path is.
But the state of Cincinnati, is this the most talent that you've seen going through the classes that you've signed?
I mean, obviously for us here, yes, but I think as a whole, that's why I think it's even bigger for us to, not that Evan wouldn't have got as much publicity and Deshaun wouldn't have got as much publicity and Jaheim wouldn't have got, but when you've got as many of the other guys, so to speak, around the state that are incredibly nationally recognized, that means everybody was here. There was a lot more people knocking on those doors. I would have said maybe we shouldn't have had some of those big national guys. That would have made it a little bit, I'm not saying easier, but maybe a little bit smoother for the coaches to, you know, to kind of finish the deal and stuff. But I think in general, the entire city, obviously it's shown by, you know, the state championships and things like that, but this year might have been one of the greater years that I've seen in a while in Cincinnati.
Do you like recruiting? Do you enjoy recruiting?
Yeah, I think that's the thing about college football, is you have such shifts. I mean, you go through a season that's, yes, you're still always recruiting, but then you kind of have a break from the end of the season, then you go into recruiting, then you go back into football, then you go back into winter and recruiting. I think if you don't, you're going to struggle. You know, I'm a relationship guy, so I think the greatest thing that you do in recruiting is building relationships. Now, do you love it when all of a sudden you've built a really strong relationship with somebody, then, you know, on a whim they're gone? No, it hurts. My wife always asked me after signing day, she'd be like, don't you wish you wouldn't have wasted all your time with that kid? And I say, nope, because I'll do it again next year, and it won't be a waste of time as long as we get them. So you can't look at it that way. But I think for the most part, our guys, that's why, you know, it's nice to see those guys that are fathers and stuff like that and recognize what it takes to have some of those relationships with some of those guys, and the time it takes to do that as well.
I only get one more, so I'm gonna go a little different.
You'll ask in 3 parts, right? We got one question in 3 parts.
You don't get many true centers in a recruiting class. There's a lot of new guys around.
So Jake is a true center. Is that your evaluation?
I mean, that's
What did he play this year?
guard,
Tackle?
tackle.
Okay. So how does that make him a true center?
That's what I've heard.
Coach Crook, is he a true center? Oh.
Maybe not
Quit talking to Chad too much. We just said that guys could, wherever their heart and their mind are.
But he's a guy that at that position, it seems like that might be where his heart and mind.
They said I should have been a true center because my legs were short, my upper body's long. I don't know. Is that what it means? You got to have a longer torso to shorter? I don't know. I didn't have to do it. I was playing on the other side. That de-evolution would go over to Coach Crook. I didn't want to do. I should have, but I didn't. You know, yes, it's sometimes it's difficult because the guy that hasn't snapped the ball, it's, you know, you're trying to assume those things, you know, and, you know, he did do it as a sophomore and as a junior. Obviously, they had to move him this year, I think, for the betterment of his team. And that's not easy to move yourself out to tackle with a bit more space. But we do see him as that kind of guy that is the prototypical maybe center. And not to say that, oh, that means he's not really tall. No, it just means that they really do well in short space. They got incredible balance. They got a really high intelligence level that, and we ask our centers to do a lot of things and call a lot of things out and, you know, maybe even point to protections and things. So there are some unique things that I don't even know if you know that we would like to see in a center, but it sounds like you might have a pretty good idea of what we're looking for. Appreciate it.
And then, so since you got the job, you've been recruiting a lot of Cincinnati players. How has the success the team's had over the past few years influenced recruiting?
Well, I don't think it's just the success the team's had. I think it's the success that we've had throughout the community, meaning the support. Obviously, it's a heck of a lot easier to support things when you're winning. And when you see that stands filled up for the UCF game and the UCLA game and, you know, our community and people, they recognize that because these guys, I mean, they love football, but they also, you know, love some of the excitement, the entertainment behind it. And so I think it's twofold. Our ability to obviously put a better product on the field, but the more that our community surrounds us and supports us and shows their support, I think the more attention that those guys in this community, the recognition. I mean, I hope to believe that the kids that are 5, 6, 7, 8 years old that, you know, saw a lot of the excitement that's happened here in the last 2 years, as they continue to get older, some of their dreams and goals are to play in Nippert Stadium. You know, I think that you hear that a lot from some kids. I know some of the former players, you know, the Colin Woodside, I know he always told me I grew up wanting to play in Nippert Stadium. Well, you know, the kids of our community, as we continue to do what we've done, hopefully they see and believe in the same things, that when they become the guys we're recruiting in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it makes it even easier on us. There's some other coaches that they want to ask some questions. You know, Chad can go back there and get some more questions with some of the other coaches. So, thanks.
Thanks, Coach.